I'm Kari Borne. I'm from the Office of Continuing Education at UW-Whitewater, and we partner with Fairhaven Senior Services to offer the lecture series, which we have been doing since 1983. This semester, we're talking about remarkable women. So we're profiling some women in history, talking about some contemporary issues, and today we get to talk about women in business. So we're looking forward to talking about that. Today's speaker is Rashiqa Kamal, and she's a professor of finance in the Department of Finance and Business Law in the College of Business and Economics at UW-Whitewater. She has worked at UW-Whitewater as finance faculty since 2008. She earned her PhD in finance from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. Last year, Rashiqa helped establish the Women in Business Institute at Kobe, and she leads the institute as the director. The mission of the institute is to support Kobe's female students and to provide them with resources for both academic and professional success. Please welcome Rashiqa Kamal.
Hi everyone, I'm very happy to be here. Since I've worked at UW-Whitewater, I've always looked at the list of lectures that Kari's office sends out, and have always wanted to be here, so I'm very grateful to Kari for asking me to be here today and talk about something that I am very passionate about. So before we kind of start talking about the presentation, I want to give you a brief kind of an overview of why I'm so passionate about this topic. So I'm sure that all of us in here are aware that since a very young age, girls are kind of, told or they see around them that math or anything that is quantitative is not for them. So, and research has shown this, that even as early as middle school, the girls, they start kind of having this perception that they cannot do math or they cannot study science, and it is something that is for boys. So even though I was not I was not born and raised here in the US, I am from, can you guess where I'm from? Oh, you guys are great. Yes, I am from India. So even though I was born and raised in India, I am a prime example of this. So as soon as I was born, it was decided that I am going to study biology and I'm going to become a doctor, like a real doctor, a medical doctor. And I will not study math, I will not study physics or whatever. And my brother, who's 2 years younger to me, as soon as he was born, it was decided that he's going to be an engineer. So he will study math. So fortunately or unfortunately, I don't know, I couldn't get into medical school, thankfully. But then I was like, okay, now what do I do with my life? So I'm like, okay, let me get an MBA. So I went to the university in my hometown. I got an MBA. When it came time to decide my major, can you guess which major I chose? Nope. No? I chose human resource management. And this, in spite of the fact that I was tutoring my classmates in financial management and operations management. So, in spite of that, I just had that fear of math in my heart and that thing in my head that I cannot do a technical study or whatever. So I chose human resource management. And then there was also kind of peer pressure. All the girls in my cohort were studying human resource management. No one was doing IT, no one was doing finance. So I also chose that. Long story short, I can go on talking about myself for a very long time, but we need to get to this. So I got married and then I came to the US. My husband was working at UNL, at the university, and he encouraged me. He said, you should go back to school. I went to the university. I started taking some classes, and I'm very grateful to my finance professors who saw my performance in their classes, and they really encouraged me and motivated me to apply for the PhD program in finance. I was very scared, but I did it. And that's it. Since then, I haven't looked back, and I'm like, this is what I want to do. So I love finance, I love math, I love statistics. And when I started teaching a class in the College of Business that is called Financial Markets and Institutions. It's a required course for all finance majors. So at that time, we had 3 sections of that class. I was the only one teaching it. All the finance majors had to go through my class. And in every section, in a section of 40 to 45 students, how many female students do you think I had? A little bit more, 4 or 5. So this group of girls, they would sit together in a corner, never speak up in class, never raise their hands, never participate unless I called on them. So yes, so from my experience, I know how it is. And we can't really blame the female students. We can't blame the women. They don't want to study finance or anything that is quantitative like accounting or supply chain or IT because they don't see themselves being reflected in the workplace. So they don't see people like themselves in the workplace, and that's the reason why they think it's not a place for me. So because of that, I feel very passionately about this, and I want more women to be in this field, to study business, more technical fields of business, because that's where the money is. At the end of the day, if you think about it, that's where the money is. So again, majors like accounting, finance, IT, the more technical they are, the higher paid the employees are. So that's my background. That's where I come from. And so, as Kari said, today we'll be talking about this issue of women in business. Again, I'm sure all of us are aware that there is a problem, right? We don't have enough representation of women. So we'll look at what is the current situation of women's representation in business. Why is it important to have gender equity in the corporate leadership or just in the corporate workplace? What are the challenges that women face in business? And then how can we make sure that things are more equitable and more inclusive in the workplace? So for this presentation, I have drawn quite heavily from a survey. McKinsey and Company is a company. What they do is every year they do a survey on the state of women in business. So a lot of things I have drawn from their survey from last year, from 2024, and in that they have looked at the state of women's representation in business over the past 10 years. So 2015 to 2024. So I got a lot of stuff from there. So historically, again, we are aware that women did not have a lot of representation in the corporate workplace. In the early 20th century, they started coming out of their homes, they started working, but it was mostly in like secretarial or clerical or administrative supporting roles. So still no decision making, no leadership, none of that stuff. Beginning in the 1970s, so through after the feminist movements of the 1960s and the 1970s, we started seeing women a bit more in the profession roles and a little bit of executive representation of women in the corporate workplace in the US. Over the past few years, a couple of decades, this has improved. Things have improved, but still we can see that there's work to be done. So In 2023, women held about 10% of the Fortune 500 CEO positions. So out of 500 companies, only 10% of them had women as CEOs. So again, not a huge number, but it's quite a lot of progress. So if you think about it, around 50% of the entry-level workforce is women, and then out of that, only 10% kind of get to the top. Around 30% of board members in the S&P 500 companies in the US are women. And again, over the past few years, this has improved because a lot of companies have adopted policies to promote the kind of hiring of women or hiring diverse board members on their board. We are not going to talk a lot about entrepreneurship, but we have seen some good strides in that area too. There has been an increase of about 58% from 2007 to 2018. And this, to a large extent, has been because of the social media platforms like TikTok and things like that. So women are becoming more entrepreneurs, but still they have funding challenges. So only about 2% of venture capital funding goes to women entrepreneurs. So this is the current kind of the situation. This is from the McKinsey report from 2024. The women in C-suite, so the C-suite is any position that is above a senior vice president in a company. So from 2015 to 2024, over the past 10 years, that number has grown from 17% to 29%. So looks good, right? I mean, a 12% increase. I think I'll take it. Looks good. This is how it looks like when we compare the representation of women at different levels in the corporation. So this is the pointer, I think. I don't know if you can see the pointer, but this is 2015 to 2024. So this right here, this bar, is a 10-year time period. So in 2015, women at the entry level were around 45%. So in 2015, when new workers were entering into the corporate workforce, about 45% of them were women. And this is all women, irrespective of race or ethnicity or other demographics. In 2024, that number has grown to about 48%. So in 2024, 48% of all the people who entered the workforce were women. So a 3% gain, 2 to 3% gain over the 10-year period. The second bar here is manager. So when an entry-level person is promoted to a manager, in 2015, around 37% of them were being promoted to a manager. 2024, around 39%. So again, a 2% gain in the managerial level. So then you can see senior manager, we see a modest increase here. Vice president, quite a bit of an increase. Senior vice president, again, increase. And then this is the C-suite. So in 2015, 17% of the women were in the C-suite, and now in 2024, it's 29%. So as I said, this looks really good. This is an increase. But is there a problem here? The amount of increase? So does anyone want to share what you think is the problem here? You're not my student, so it's okay. You sure? Mm-hmm. Yep. So, yeah, so 51% of the world's population is women. Women hold 59% of the bachelor's degrees in the US. So, and still the entry level is only 48%, right? So, from 2015 to 2024, the problem is that the entry level hasn't changed much. Based on the demographics, it's only an increase of 2%. Similarly, the entry level employees, the women, are not being promoted to the managerial position as much. So, yes, over the past 10 years, this looks really nice, a 12% increase in the C suite. But when there's not enough women coming in, when there are not enough women being promoted, over time, this is not going to be sustained. So that is the problem. And this phenomenon is called the broken rung problem. So when a woman is trying to climb that corporate ladder, they have this broken rung. They are not promoted as managers, not as often as men. So, and also a disclaimer, I should have said this before. Whenever I open my mouth to talk about topics like these, I feel like some people, they sit back and they're like, okay, let the man bashing begin. So I just want to be clear. This is this is not man bashing. I have nothing against men. Um, Whoever is promoted, whoever is a manager, president, vice president, of course they deserve it. That's why they are there. But my point is that women also deserve it. They have, if they have the same qualifications, the same education, the same skills, then there's no way that they should be held back just because of some other, like a bias or a stereotype or something like that. So that's my only point. So I wanted to make that disclaimer. So yes, so coming back to this, that kind of is the problem there. So, and of course, when we bring race and ethnicity into the mix, things get worse. So women of color, they are more underrepresented. So as I said, this right here is for all women. McKinsey and Company, in their survey, they break it up by race and ethnicity as well. So women of color, especially black women, have it the worst. Asian women are okay at the entry level. Asian men and Asian women, they have the same entry level percentages, but then men tend to be promoted to the C-suite more often than Asian women. So, and again, there are stereotypes that Asian women are, they lack leadership skills, they are docile, they are not assertive, and so they cannot make good managers. So just an example there. At the current pace, it will take the US nearly 50 years to reach parity. So for all women to be equal to men in the workplace, in terms of placement in all those different positions, it's going to take almost 50 years. So here, what are the key barriers to advancement? The broken rung that I talked about. This chart here shows, and again, this is for all women. So this line here is men, 100. If 100 men are promoted to manager, compared to that, in 2018, only 79 women were promoted to the managerial position. In 2024, for every 100 men that were promoted as managers, only 81 women are promoted to the managerial position. And again, this takes into account everything, the skill level, the education, and things like that. If you look at the same chart for black women, as I said, it's even worse. So for every 100 men promoted to the managerial position, in 2018, only 60 black women were promoted. And last year, only 54, even worse than 2018, only 54 women were promoted as managers. So, yeah. Yep. That's a very good observation. So I'm not sure about this one. This could just be like statistics. I don't know if this is a significant change. So I'm not sure about the reason here, but this one from 2020 to 21 and 22, yes, it's a major increase. And again, can anyone think of what happened there? Yeah, that could be it too. The killing of George Floyd in 2020, that was followed by the Black Lives Matter movement. So, yes, we did see a lot of activity and progress in the area of diversity, equity, and inclusion in the aftermath of the George Floyd killing. So, so this could be affected by that. So because we did see a lot of companies, they started adopting DEI, a lot of higher education institutes, they started adopting DEI policies and things like that. So my opinion is this jump was in because of that. And yes, the Democratic um, government supportive of those policies, that's the reason. But then in 2022, it went back down to even worse than 2018. So for every 100 men promoted, only 54 black women were promoted to the managerial position. So this is the broken rung problem. If women are not promoted as managers at the lower level, it will be hard for us to see them as a CFO or a CEO or the president of a company. So that's what the companies need to look at, and they should focus on. When will we reach parity? At the pace that we are going right now, so based upon the recruitment of entry-level workers, the policies of companies for white women, parity is in sight, 22 years. But then when we include all women, so especially women of color, it will take almost 50 years to reach parity. And that's given that we keep on working at the same pace that we are working right now. Okay, so that's where we stand right now. We have made gains, but still there's work to be done. So the question is, why do we care about gender equity in the workplace? Why do we need women in the workplace? So first of all, I don't know, I think it's our moral obligation. There are women out there who are smart, who are educated, who are driven, who are ambitious, who want to become CEOs of companies. They want to lead companies, right? So if we are creating these artificial barriers for them, it's not the right thing to do. So I think society, first of all, has a moral obligation to be fair to women. And then since I'm an academic, I have to talk about research in the academia. Research has shown that companies that have diverse leadership, and here diversity is not only in terms of gender, but all kinds of diversity. Companies with diverse leadership, they have improved innovation, decision making, and healthier cultures. Specifically to women, again, research has shown that women, when they lead companies, it leads to higher profitability. both in terms of like accounting profits and the shareholders' wealth or the price, the stock price. So research has shown that women, they kind of bring in a different perspective to the decision-making process, and that's the reason why they have different outcomes. Research has also shown that women are less risky. They make less risky decisions, and in the long run, that benefits the company, that benefits the stock price. There is a better representation of customer demographics. To me personally, it's unbelievable. So let me give you an example of the pharmaceutical companies, right? So till a few years ago, a few decades ago, the medical industry and these pharmaceutical companies, they came to realize that all the drug tests and the medical experiments that they have been doing, the drug testing, it excluded women, not intentionally, but a lot of the drug testing and the medical experiments were done on males. They didn't have enough females to do those drug testing. So imagine, as a woman, I was being fed a medication that was not tested for my body. It was tested, let's say, on a white man who is like much taller, much bigger than me, at least me, right? And also, he's a man, and the same dosage is being given to me. So imagine how crazy is that, right? How crazy is that? So only recently they realized that something is not right here. We need more women to be tested on for these drugs and these experiments. So if you have diverse people in the leadership, they think about these things. They think about these things. Another example, NFL, right? NFL, again, I think recently realized that just being men-focused, they are kind of ignoring or neglecting the 50% of humanity, 50% of potential revenues. So now their ads, if you have seen those ads, are focused on women. Have you seen those ads, NFL ads? So they are trying to promote women, not to play flag football. They are starting flag football. They are trying to sell the NFL, the apparel to women, right? Because they know they are missing out on that 50% of the population. During Super Bowl, Nike had this whole ad targeted at women. So it makes economic sense. It makes economic sense to have women in the workplace as well, because they can think, they bring in a different perspective. Better work-life and family balance. Again, in the 1950s, 1960s, maybe women didn't need to go out and work, even if they wanted to, because one salary was more than enough to take care of everyone and everything. But now, as we see, our lifestyles have changed. Everything is more expensive, right? There's inflation. And it's very hard to just survive on one salary. So even if women don't want to work now, it's a necessity. They have to go out and work. As a finance professor, I do not recommend this, but there is that real pressure of trying to keep up with the Joneses, right? I think there is. So if you want to do that, if you have to keep up with the Joneses, you have to have two incomes. So imagine a husband and a wife. Let's keep things simple. A husband and a wife, they have a family. Both are equally qualified, equally skilled, equally educated, working in the same position. The husband comes home and says, oh, I got a promotion and this is my starting salary or whatever. And the wife, who is equally qualified, is getting $10,000 less than the husband. How do you feel? How do you think the dynamics of that family are going to be? Not good, right? So if we want a better work life and family balance, we have to make sure men have to make sure that the women in their companies are being paid fairly and they have policies that treat the women fairly as well. So these are the reasons why we need gender equity in the workplace, because it's good for everyone. It's good for the company, it's good for the economy, and it's good for families. So what are the challenges? As I said, pay gap. So even today, women are paid 82 cents less for every dollar earned by men. Again, keeping constant the skill set, the educations, the qualifications. Um, there are gender biases and stereotypes, and this starts at the entry level. So women are, as I said, stereotyped that they do not have leadership skills, they are not assertive, they are not smart or not good with numbers or whatever. So we have these biases, we have these stereotypes. That's a challenge for women. Work-life balance challenges. Um, Only women can be mothers. There's no denying that. And motherhood and maternity comes with its challenges. So there are challenges that women face in this area. And then also we know that in the later stages of their lives, women tend to become caregivers more as compared to men. So caring for either their partners, or because typically women end up living longer than men, so they end up being caregivers to their partners or their aging parents, or if they have special needs kids or a family member, women tend to become caregivers. So those are other challenges, the challenge of motherhood and caregiving. There are limited mentorship and networking opportunities for women. So again, because of these unique challenges and these biases, the women do not get an opportunity to network and find mentors like men are able to. And so that also creates problems for them. That is a challenge for them in the workplace. So again, this is from the McKinsey report, what the companies have been doing over the last 10 years in the US. So from 2015 to 2024, companies are trying. So they also realize that there is this entry-level problem. So they are trying to de-bias the hiring and performance reviews. So doing things like blind reviews or blind hiring practices. So we don't know whether this applicant is a male or a female. And so things like that, companies are trying to do that. They do a lot of de-biasing training. The problem is that all of this training, it is not showing up in the performance of the managers. So managers, they go to these trainings, they go to the DEI trainings, but they have so much pressure of showing that work performance that they are not really serious about these things. Over the past 10 years, again, unfortunately, the companies are not investing in mentorship, sponsorship, and career development for women. They have reduced those programs. A lot of the companies, at least the ones that were included in the survey, the companies have reduced those programs over time. Companies have declining commitment to DEI efforts, and moving forward now, we think that a lot of the companies will either voluntarily or involuntarily give up their DEI efforts. So again, efforts for inclusion and equity in the workplace. However, after COVID, we have seen that a lot of companies are providing better work-life balance benefits, especially flexibility. And flexibility to work from home is a big one for women. And especially that's again true because of motherhood and because of their caregiving responsibilities if they are doing something like that. So that helps women being more flexible. Some firms mandate gender diversity on boards. So I think 3 or 4 years ago, the state of California, they passed a law where any company that was incorporated in the state of California needed to meet gender diversity requirements on their boards. 3 years ago, NASDAQ, so NASDAQ is a stock exchange, just like the New York Stock Exchange. NASDAQ came out with a ruling. They also said that any company that is listed on NASDAQ, they need to meet certain board diversity requirements. So moving forward, they needed to have a woman on their board. They needed to have a person from the LGBTQ community on their board, a person with a different race on their board. And so they had these requirements. So that law was, that kind of ruling or mandate was challenged a number of times in the courts of law. Finally, it was passed last year, but I'm thinking moving forward, that's going to go away. So we don't know if these mandates work, if they increase, they of course increase the diversity of boards, but we don't know if they improve the performance of the firms because we don't have enough data to kind of measure that. So some companies have those mandates as well. But as I said, after everything is said and done, there's still a lot of work to be done. So what can we do? Encourage more women to pursue executive roles. As I said, for me, coming into finance was because of the encouragement and motivation of my finance professors, all of whom were old white men. But they encouraged me, and they were like, you know, you have to do this, and I'm so grateful to them. So if you have women in your lives, you know, this is what you have to do. You have to encourage them. We have to advocate for policy changes because, as I said, it's good for everyone, right? It's good for the community, for the economy, for families. A lot of companies are cutting back on the mentorship and sponsorship support for women, but again, we need to advocate for this and promoting workplace inclusivity. So there are a lot of other challenges that women face. A couple of them are microaggressions. So, you know, a coworker will say something which is you don't feel good about it because they are targeting your gender. So that's a microaggression. There is sexual harassment of women as well. So all of these things are also challenges that the women face in the workplace. So, okay, so I hope that I was kind of able to, it's a wide topic of discussion, and you know, I hope that you were able to kind of get an idea of where we are right now, what we need to do, what it's going to be like moving forward. So this is an example of Indra Nui. She was the CEO of PepsiCo from I think 2006 to 2018, and under her leadership, PepsiCo did really well. They increased almost 80% of their revenues. In 2018, when she was retiring, she had a moment of kind of a confession, and she was like, you know, I did it. I climbed that corporate ladder. I became the CEO. I led a company successfully, but it was not easy. And after retirement, this is what she does. She goes and talks about stuff that it is so hard for women, even if they want to do it, it is so hard for them to do it. It's very difficult to have it all. And what she advocates is for policy changes. So policy changes, again, around keeping the family at the center of everything. So making sure that the women, they excel at their work, but also giving them opportunities and policies to be able to be good mothers, good wives at home as well. So I find her kind of her parting letter to the company and the employees of PepsiCo in 2018. I find this to be very, very motivating when I read this letter, because, you know, being a professor is also not easy. Being a woman and a professor is also not easy. There's so much stuff you have to do and then take care of family and everything. So just being a working mom is not easy. But I love doing this. And I hope that, I get to keep doing this and I get to inspire other women to do this as well. So, what are we doing in our college, in the College of Business and Economics? So, as I said, when I started teaching, I was really very disappointed with the number of female to male students in my classes. So I went to my dean and I said, we need to do something. We need to improve these numbers. We need more women in our business classes. And he was like, what do you want to do? And I'm like, remember the entry level position? We don't have women, female students coming in. So I said to him, why don't we do this? We bring in female students from high schools, from our area high schools, and we bring them into Kobe in our college for a day and show them what we have to offer, what our majors are, and if they study business, what they can do with their degree. And he's like, okay, go ahead and do this. So I got together with a few faculty. We planned the event. We called it the Women in Business Day. The first Women in Business Day happened in 2016. And we got female high school students from area high schools like Whitewater, Milton, Janesville. Now we are very famous around this area. And we fed them lunch. We talked to them about the different majors. We took them on a campus tour. And it was a lot of fun. We did this for a number of years. Every year we would have these students come in. Last year, my dean said, okay, we have been focusing on recruiting more female students. What do we do when we get them here? So then I said, why don't we do a Women in Business Institute that will support our current female students? So now we have the Women in Business Institute, and our alumni are very excited. They are so excited to give back. They have been involved. We do events. So we organize events like teaching the students how to negotiate, so negotiate their salaries, negotiate their promotions. We do topics of financial planning. In March, we are doing a topic on retirement planning, so hopefully getting them thinking about retirement as early as possible. We do things like professional development. They bring in their resumes. The alumni come, they look at their resumes, give them feedback. And one of our most kind of the popular event or program has been the mentorship event. So our alumni, we bring them on campus one evening. We do kind of a speed networking thing. Initially we called it the speed dating mentorship event. The chancellor's office came back and said, you cannot call it that. So then we said, okay, speed networking. So we bring in the alumni, we have our students. The alumni are at different tables, the students go around them, and they talk to them, and then at the end of the night, we pair them up as mentors and mentees. So we have had some excellent mentor and mentees pairs, and it's just very exciting to see our students doing so much. So that's what the Women in Business Institute does. We bring in alumni, we offer our students all of these different opportunities, resources, and all of Weebies, we call it Weebie at Kobe. So all of Weebie's events are open to all students at UW-Whitewater. So a lot of our male students were also paired up with alumni as mentors and mentees last fall. So, and my intention as the director of Weebie is to involve and include our male students as well. And this is what I tell them when I promote Weebie in my classes. I tell them that I want you to be allies of these female students. When you go out in the industry, I hope that one day when you are trying to hire a female or a male employee, you don't look at their gender. You just look at their qualifications. It's very hard. I know it's very hard to get rid of the biases that you have in your head, the stereotypes that you have grown up with. Let me tell you, I'm a biased person. I'm very honest about that. So, but you have to be conscious. And that will happen only if you learn about the challenges that your colleagues, your female colleagues, are facing in the workplace. Only when you learn about those challenges and only when you learn how you can advocate for them, um, that's, that's how you can help them. So that is Women in Business Institute at Kobe. Again, I'm very passionate about this. It's a lot of work, but I love doing it. Especially the female students when they come to me and they tell me how the mentorship, their mentor relationship is going, how they enjoyed this event or that event, what they took out from it. It's very inspiring. So I think if you have any questions or comments.